I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Thursday, April the 22nd, brought to you in part by EPRA Zero by Norbrook. It's a pour-on dewormer, 99.9% effective against the major species and stages of parasites. For more information, go to norbrook.com. Cattlemen losing again, and the sun doesn't shine on your cattle producers for very long, and it's getting where it's more rare all the time. But everything is against them. Everything against the cattle producer, more so than your feeder. Feeders, especially your big corporate feeders, they have their tough times, and it's not good right now. But if they've got some equity and they're in for the long haul, they can basically play the basis game and usually get by. But your cattle producers, your cow-calf men, your backgrounders and the like, they've got to have real money for their cattle. I mean, they've got to buy stuff. It costs real money. They got to pay for their grass lease, or they've got to pay for their inputs. They've got to pay for this, pay for that. Not that your cattle feeders don't, but so many of them are working on such a big volume that it's easier for them, and that's why we see so many of your bigger your feedlots just being big guys, and there's not very many of the little ones anymore because they can't afford it. But they can get to economies of scale at a certain point. But just your average guy that's got 200 or 300 cows, I mean, he is absolutely getting beat up. Everything's higher. We've got inflation on all your inputs. Absolutely everything is higher for him to operate, higher for his family to live, higher to pay for all that. His pasture's short in most all areas. If he's out west, he's facing drought already, and we haven't even got all the way into the spring yet, and also already facing drought. If he's in the Midwest, it's been so cool that his pasture's short. He's likely still feeding cows or waiting on the grass to come around, and it's been a long winter, and I tell you what, he's about had it. Now we've got corn at 6 1/4 a bushel. That's where it closed out on Wednesday. You can't afford your commodity feeds, and now your feeder cattle market is going to hell because of the high price of these feed costs. Your fats have stalled out. Yeah, we did get into the 120s, but your fat market is stalled out, and most of your guys that have fat cattle on a show list, they just keep falling all over themselves. If they're not already in some type of formula arrangement, they're selling their cattle for a month out or 6 weeks out, and it's completely stalled out the rally that we had going there up until last week on your fat cattle trade. Box beef cutout values over $280 now, and your packers are not willing to share any of that with the guys that supply them with the product that they need. It's just, I mean, at every angle, your cattlemen or your cattle producers are just taking it in the head, and they have to do everything perfect, and they have to get top of the market for their cattle just to wash. And it's a tough deal, and the guys, if the guys didn't love it as much as they do, they wouldn't do it, and that's for any of us. There's a lot better ways or easier ways to make a living, but guys just love to do it so much. Let's look at your board on Wednesday. April live cattle futures down 80 cents, 119.77. June was down $1.95. Now that's frustrating. 117 1/4. You go on your back months of live cattle. This is live cattle. Now they're done with corn. Your back months on live cattle down 20 cents to down $1.42. April feeder cattle, and we thought we'd found some footing on our Tuesday session, but oh my gosh, just this corn will not let up. But April feeder cattle down 247. At 135.10. We've lost $10 here in just a very short time, and that was likely what these producers of these bigger yearlings or big calves that are feeder weight, that was likely what they stood to get by on for the year, 80 to 100 bucks a head, and we've just lost it here in the last few weeks. May feeder cattle down 317 at 139.60. Go on your out fronts on feeder cattle down 157 to down 260. Main reason, your grain prices, your feedstuffs are just costing so much more. May corn up 19 cents just on Wednesday's session, now at $6.25 and a half a bushel. New crops at $5.36 and a half. And you think, gosh dang, is it just because of that cold temperature? A lot of it has to do with the cold. Where the guys were scared earlier because they didn't think they were going to plant enough acres. I think they're going to plant plenty enough acres, and I think they're going to have plenty enough yield and crop, bumper crop to settle all this. But it's just hasn't been good, hasn't been favorable so far this spring. But it's also because just the global demand for corn. And we've got outstanding demand for corn in every export market, especially China and in your Asian markets over there. And I tell you what, it's just really, really getting to levels that guys aren't comfortable with anymore. We thought that if we kept corn in the $5 a bushel range, maybe we could manage it. But now that it's gotten, just in the last couple of days, shot up there to $6.25 a bushel for your nearby, my goodness. Soybeans up 25.25, sitting at $14.97.25. Going to be plenty of soybeans planted too. Your new crop on beans is $13.10.25. Kansas City wheat, which looks like it would be more of a jump than anything. Your nearby May Kansas City wheat sitting at $6.3075. My goodness, just everything, and there's not a substitute that's worth the money that you can plug into the ration to significantly cheapen it up. Let's talk about your fat cattle trade. Another disappointing trading session, and it's guys just that are selling cattle refuse to get together, refuse to dig in, and continue to play into the packers' hands, which they are superior in their manipulative negotiations. They're made like they didn't need any cattle on Monday and Tuesday. The only cattle that they needed was for mid-May. Well, then they come in on Wednesday with everything going to shit and start buying cattle steady to cheaper in a week that we assumed we would gain some more ground again after stalling out last week. But Iowa sells 4,600 head on Wednesday, ranging from 121 to 123. That'd be steady to mostly a buck lower on a live basis. 192 dress, that's $3 to $4 lower. Nebraska about 3,000 head on Wednesday, and about steady with late last week from 122 to 124, but you couldn't get that everywhere. That wasn't just some guys that cried uncle. You couldn't get that. Those are guys that got all that was out there. There just wasn't a whole lot out there. Kansas 3,300 head on Wednesday from 119 to 120, and that's about a buck lower. Texas about 3,400 head from 119 and a half to 120. And a lot of that, or not a lot of it, but a portion of those sales that I gave you come from Central Stockyards Fed Cattle Exchange, where they sold 1,500 head out of 3,500 that were offered. But if you go on there and look at that market report, it kind of gives you a breakdown. They had a hold on some of those cattle that they wouldn't take less than, and a lot of them gave it up on there, or the ones that sold had to give it up because didn't get bid much more than 120 there. But all but one of the 7 pens of cattle that they sold on there came from corporate feed yards that are already aligned with packers. So it kind of makes you scratch your head. I mean, it's not Farmer Brown's feedlot over here that he's out there negotiating upon. It's big corporate feed yards or outfits that are already in a formulated partnership with the packers. But they're selling cattle on the online auction deal, and a lot of people talking about on Wednesday that and them surprisingly taking less money than what they really wanted in the beginning when they consigned those cattle. A lot of people kind of rumoring and saying that maybe they just wanted to set this market at 120. But that deal didn't work very good this week, other than some commission paid. But how about Tama? Sale barn there in Tama, Iowa. They had a light run of fat cattle. I've told you the fat cattle auction's been running really well this week, but there's just not enough of them, and they don't run enough volume. But maybe they should, and maybe they could. But the choice cattle in Tama, Iowa, mostly sold from 121 to 127 with a weighted average price at 124.69. Box beef cutout values just continue to gain ground. Highest they've ever been in any April ever, and that's when they're the highest. This time of year, April and May, going right in here to our grilling season. But choice cuts on Wednesday afternoon, 280.46, up 220. Select 271.88, up $1.41. Your slaughter is running on a pretty good clip. These packers need cattle. They've got to step up the chain speeds here, because they've been kind of lagging behind and not having a lot of processing here. But 360,000 through Wednesday, that's 17,000 more than last week, 102,000 more than the same week a year ago. What else is going on? Talked to my friend Chuck Bradley from out in Alabama. He's probably the world's next world's champion livestock auctioneer, in my opinion, unless he lays an egg out there in Nashville in June. No pressure there, Chuck. But Montgomery Stockyards on Monday is going to have one of their board sales, and they've got 100 loads of yearling cattle, true yearling cattle on there. If you guys need some, and he said there wasn't going to be maybe 12 loads or so of those that were going to be showing much ear at all. Most of the cattle could go anywhere, and mostly steers. So you guys that are wanting to buy some of those, it's not going to hurt you to buy some of those southeastern cattle, especially the good ones this time of year, because their whole feeding session is going to be in the heat, guys, and they'll continue to perform when those blocky cattle that you like so much, it's got so much hair, will be standing over there panting, and those cattle with a little cross to them will go right on. But Monday's board sale out of Montgomery Stockyards, check it out. If you want more information, call Chuck Bradley or Wes Grantham. There you can find their contact information, the Montgomery Stockyards website. Let's talk about your feeder cattle market. Your real-time index on DV auction late in the day on Wednesday set at 137.90, down another 42 cents, and it's just going to continue to plummet, because every day we go to an auction, the market's lower than it was the day before. Your big sales on Wednesday, OKC West, El Reno, Oklahoma, 5,900 head. Feeder steers, $2 to $5 lower. The least of those losses were on your heaviest steers. Those weighing way up into the nines there, only $1 to $3 lower. Feeder heifers, $2 to $3 lower. Calves not well tested. Winter livestock, Dodge City, Kansas was a bright spot, but about the best sale that I saw anywhere on Wednesday. They had 2,300 head. Remember last week, and I wasn't sure on that either, they were sharply lower. Everybody was lower from mid to end of the week last week. They were $4 to $8 lower last week, whenever a lot of your other Wednesday sales weren't that much lower. But now this week, when everybody's lower, they were steady to $5 higher than the sharp losses that they had last week. But they had several quotes that were very impressive, and indeed they have the highest quote for the day. Give you that at the very tail end of the report. But let's look around at some individual quotes around the circuit. How about Springfield Livestock Marketing Center, Springfield, Missouri? Josh Ford sent me a text, gave me a heads up. I would have found it anyway whenever I got to looking. But black steers, 76 head of them through the ring there in Springfield, Missouri, weighed 691, 153 1/4. Cherokee Sales Company, Cherokee, Oklahoma, Jared Herman Company, 67 head, 947 pound feeder steers, bring 127.35. But the best quote that I saw anywhere on Wednesday, and your Zach Tran top quote for the day, come out of Winter Livestock, Dodge City, Kansas, 75 head, 707 pound steers at $158. And that's your feeder flash for Thursday.